Alright folks, this video is going to be done by the request of a viewer and a fellow model builder. They want to do some work maybe converting the Bandai M61A5 into something they can use in the Warhammer world, and they wondered how it compared size-wise to the Games Workshop Baneblade. So they asked if I could just give them a quick size comparison, and that's no problem, sure. But I figured, you know what, let's not stop there. Let's put it up against not only the Baneblade, let's look at it against a Shadow Sword, which is back here and you'll see in a minute. Let's look at it against, since this is a 135 scale vehicle, a rather large one, but let's look at it against a 148 scale tank. Let's also compare it to a Leman Russ, which is a kind of a normal, functioning, normal power tank in the same Warhammer universe as the Baneblade. So it shouldn't be a very long video, just showing the comparisons of the various pieces, and then I'm going to get to work painting the rest of this for the part 2 of this particular video right here. Or part 3, can't really remember. But anyway, so let's get to this. So the 135 scale M61A5 is an enormous vehicle for the scale. But it is considerably larger than an M1 Abrams tank in the same scale. It's just a huge, massive vehicle. This is the Baneblade next to it. Now, there's some debate as to what scale Warhammer vehicles are. If you look at the figures, I say the figures most closely represent 148 scale figures, which would sort of make the vehicles 148 scale. But then again, these are 28mm figures or hero scale figures, which don't adequately represent the correct portions of human beings. So you can't compare them to an exact scale. So, you know, I mean, if you look at this, if you look at the size of the guy, this is an incredibly small turret, even for just one man. There's no way you could even take a 148 scale person in there and be like, where does the ammo go? Where is the loader? Even if it's an auto load. So there's not really a good direct scale by scale comparison. But I like personally to compare Warhammer vehicles to 148 scale vehicles. I think that a 135 scale is a good scale comparison for a super heavy tank, but not a regular scale tank like this. But that's why I think that comparing the Baneblade to something like this is a fair comparison. Now, the M61A5 is a little bit bigger than the Baneblade, if you take a look there. The turret is much bigger than the Baneblade, but turrets in the Warhammer world are kind of small. The vehicle itself, though, in terms of width, is pretty similar. You can kind of put them back to back, and they match up fairly closely in terms of track width and everything. Length, again, fairly similar. The M61A5 being just a little bit bigger. The turret is where you have a lot of the bulk of this vehicle, though. And if I had a loose, I wish I had a loose Warhammer figure too, but I don't. All I have is this 148 scale figure, and it's a bit massive for this 148 scale tank crewman. But in the Warhammer world, the Baneblade being a huge, massive tank, you can kind of see what I mean when I say that the figures are sort of 148 scale on my estimation. You know, they have abnormally large heads, but it kind of works a little bit. I wish I had a 135 scale figure, like I said. You'd see how much bigger they are than the Warhammer figures. But if you look at the size of this figure compared to this hatch, he fits pretty nicely. So, looking at a 148 scale figure on this vehicle, you would have that super heavy effect. You'd have many, many crewmen, and I think there's a crew of about 10 inside a Baneblade. You could have many crewmen working inside this vehicle in your Warhammer world with, you know, your one commander sort of manning here with a large machine gun. Sorry, I'm blocking the scale comparison there. In the open turret, and it would fit kind of the scale here on the Baneblade. So there's your basic Baneblade to M61A5 comparison. The reason I want to compare the Shadow Sword is because it has that really large volcano cannon, and this one's not quite finished. But that big main gun is a good comparison to the large main gun on this tank here. I think it's a pretty fair size comparison if you wanted to maybe even cut the volcano cannon and mount it where these main guns go to give it more of a bigger, beefier Warhammer look. These guns are pretty small for any main gun in the Warhammer world by just about any comparison, you know? Comparing it to a standard Leman Russ, and this is kind of the old school Leman Russ. This is not one of the newer kits. And it's got some modifications with a Torox battle cannon there, which it normally wouldn't have, but... So this is, you know, your standard Imperial Guard, Astra and Milliwatt, whatever you want to call it, main battle tank. And this is considered, in the Gundam world, the main battle tank. So again, going with whatever scale you want to give Warhammer, this tank is huge compared to the Leman Russ, which would make it, I think, pretty suitable for a super heavy type conversion. I mean, I don't even need to hold him up to the camera. You can see how much more massive this guy would be versus the Leman Russ. If I take the turret off here, I could put little baby Leman Russ right on top. I mean, this guy could ride to battle on top of the hull of the M61A5. No problem. As a matter of fact, if you wanted to, and I'm getting an idea for a conversion right here just doing this video, I'm just throwing this out there. Maybe I've got my next conversion idea coming together already. Anyway, okay, so there's that. And then finally, I have compared this to a 135 scale Abrams in part 1 of the video for this model, and you can go back and see it. But because I talked about 148 scale, here's an Abrams in 148 scale. So an Abrams with a crew of 4 inside of these sized men. Now in the Warhammer universe, everything is just a little bit bigger, beefier, stronger, tougher than everything in real life, right? So it would make sense that the Leman Russ is a little bit bigger than the M1 in real life. And again, being a super heavy tank, I think that it's a good size comparison to help you kind of say, if this is what a tank would be like in real life, this is what a tank holding 10 to 15 people would roughly be sized like in comparison to this as a real life tank. And you could even say that if this is a 120 millimeter main gun in scale today, then yeah, these large guns, and these are supposed to be 155 millimeter in 135 scale. These in the same scale, these would be much larger caliber guns. But again, I would probably replace them with something from the Warhammer world if I was going to do that. There's just a quick comparison of the Bandai M61A5 to the Baneblade, the Shadow Sword, Leman Russ, and a 148 scale M1 for fellow model builders, people interested, converters, just wondering how this might play into a Warhammer type conversion. I hope that this video helped a little bit. For the one who requested it, I hope it was what you were looking for, with the actual side-by-side comparison of the Baneblade itself, and maybe the extras helped you out a little bit more. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm going to get to painting this for the next video in this series, and I'll see you guys again soon.